here is a clip of Dave Ramsey. This guy is an evangelical money advisor, if you will, to millions of Americans on radio. He has a massive radio show. He's been on for years. He basically tells people, if you are in debt, if you have lost your job, it is because there is a moral failing within you. And here he is going on Fox and making that case about the $1,400 check.
Well, to start with, we need to understand we got $1.7 trillion in student loan debt. $192 billion out of that. Not so much. Let's do some ratios, folks. If we're going to do math, we probably ought to play math. Now, on top of that, when you dig into it, the whole idea that student loans being forgiven is going to stimulate the economy, that assumes that people were getting ready to pay them off this year and instead would use that same $40,000 that they were getting ready to pay off their student loan and stimulate the economy with it. Again, that's economic hogwash. It's smoke and mirrors. It's simply not going to happen.
Dave, I just think there's a moral hazard doing this. You're young,
absolutely.
You signed a financial contract. You have an obligation to pay that money back.
Absolutely. Well, listen, there's some situations where folks are hurting, and this thing has it's gotten completely out of hand.
Yeah.
I mean, there are people's lives who have been destroyed by this program. Somebody needs some relief somewhere. I'm fine with that. But this has nothing to do with really helping people. This is a political gimme by progressives simply trying to buy votes. And we know that because when you go from $10,000 in forgiveness to $50,000 in forgiveness, the people who benefit are not lower income people. The vast majority of people that have an average income or less have less than $10,000 in student loan debt. Mm-hmm. The vast majority of people who would be blessed by moving it from 10 to 50 are high income earners. So again, this is all political rhetoric. It's not
Dave,
reality.
You come from an interesting perspective. You talk to Americans across the country every day on your radio program.
Yeah.
What do you believe is the right number or the right answer for the next stimulus check?
Well, I don't believe in a stimulus check because if $600 or $1,400 changes your life, you were pretty much screwed already. You got other issues going on. You have a career problem, you have a debt problem, you have a relationship problem, you have a mental health problem. Something else is going on if $600 changes your life. And that's not talking down to folks. I've been bankrupt. I've been broken. I work with people every day who are hurting. I love people. I want people to be lifted up. But this is, again, it is just political rhetoric, and it's just throwing dollars out there. It's peeing on a forest fire. It's absolutely ridiculous.
All right. There's so much here that is offensive and needs. Do you want to take the first crack at it? And because I know we're both chomping at the bit for this.
I don't know. I mean, I've had the unfortunate privilege of covering this. This will be my third time talking about this guy, a millionaire, multi-billion. I mean, so rich that he doesn't understand how many people need $600. Right? Let's forget about the $1,400. That $600 could save somebody's life right now, right? I mean, to be able to make that statement and then blame it on mental health and to blame it and like say it's pissing on a forest fire, like get your analogy straight, because you're right. $600 and $1,400, $2,000 is insufficient, right, to address the issues that Americans are facing. But he's also saying don't give Americans anything. And so it's just coming from a place of that hermetically sealed bubble that we're talking about. Fox News can forward this agenda, this narrative, and their followers are going to listen to it and believe it, even though they themselves need that $600 to just be able to feed their own kids. And so it just speaks to how broken America is, man. American citizens, I mean, even if you split it down ideologically, right, we're broken. If you look at us all together, we're broken because there's absolutely no way this government should have been able to get away with what it's gotten away with through this pandemic.
You know, this is Ramsey trying to have his moment that the guy on the commodities exchange floor in Chicago, I can't remember his name.
Yes, I remember that.
Who kicked off the Tea Party movement as blaming people who had gotten into fraudulent mortgages, et cetera, et cetera. But there's a couple of things I want to address about Ramsey. First off, the idea that student debt would not stimulate the economy is just simply wrong. You can go and you can Google the American Home Builders Association president who can tell you that the number one reason for slow home starts is because people are saddled with that debt. If I've got a $50,000 bill I've got to pay, even if I'm paying $400 or $500 a month, I'm not going to take a mortgage. I'm not going to qualify for a mortgage, frankly. for a house. So I'm not going to go out and buy a house. I might not be able to buy a car because I don't want the extra $200, $300 payment a month for that car because I got a $500, $400, $600, $700 a month payment. You've got people. I've interviewed on this program a woman who had $25,000 worth of debt. Within 5 years, it was $50,000 from college. I mean, where half of it is interest. He's wrong about the economics of this. He's just blatantly wrong about it. And then they start talking about moral hazard. This is a guy who, by his own admission, has been bankrupt, declared bankruptcy at least once. Now, for people who don't know what that means debt forgiveness. You can't talk about moral hazard of having people who are saddled with debt that virtually did not even exist. That type of debt did not exist when he went to college. Didn't need it because colleges are far less expensive. You could also discharge that debt if you had it in bankruptcy when he declared bankruptcy. And now they're out there. He's shutting the barn door and saying this is a moral hazard if we allow for this type of debt. It is astonishing. And this is really all they have. And it's going to be interesting to see because when Frank Santelli got on the floor of the Chicago Commodities Exchange, said, like, we're not paying off their mortgages. It led to the immiseration of millions of people who ultimately dealt with foreclosure and an anemic attempt by the Obama administration, who was concerned about that moral hazard. They rolled out HAMP. It was a horrible program for homeowners. It saved the banks. And then we got Donald Trump. And so it's going to be interesting to see how people react to this type of proclamation from Ramsey.
I think that the difference here is that we're in a pandemic, and I hope I've been saying in all episodes so far is that Americans are broken, right? That's the only way I can understand this and process it, right? But I hope that maybe the pendulum is swinging in the other direction, because I think for him to just very straightforward to say that if you need $600, then something's wrong with you. I hope that is at least jarring enough to somebody who's literally trying to figure out how to feed their kids, even if they are conservative. I hope it's enough to actually start swinging the pendulum back in the other direction. I hope that this is resoundingly rejected. I think that it will be, but conservatives never cease to amaze me. So let's see how they accept this.
If people want to read more about Dave Ramsey, you can find more at it is RNS, I think it is. It's the Religious News Service. Did a big piece on him just about a month ago, January 15th, 2021, written by Bob Smantana. Ramsey's place to work, not necessarily the best place to work, but Helene Olin also wrote a great book on these type of advisors. And this is sort of interesting because, like, the idea that their agenda is to isolate your situation and say the reason why you are struggling financially is because of you, a moral failing of some form, whatever he went through the litany of them. Something's going on, whether you got drugs or you got whatever it is, as opposed to a systemic problem in society that we do not provide, and we do not provide enough of the nation's wealth for people to live a bare existence, as it were, right? And that is their agenda. Make you, the individual, feel like it's your fault so that you don't start questioning, like, hey, wait a second, how come Canada, you just dial into the phone and it's easier than, checking, how much you owe for your credit card, you get unemployment. How come we have mechanisms to distribute healthcare at other countries? I mean, all of that. And that's the way they do it.
And because the way they pull it off is that they have defined for conservatives patriotism to reflect more of what marched up the steps of the Capitol on January 6th, right? Than being the people who can look at America and say, America, we have to do better. There's really no excuse for us to not take care of our citizens when everybody else, every other country on the face of this planet is probably doing a better job than Americans are. So what they have had to do is redefine personal responsibility. They have had to redefine patriotism, and they have found this nice little niche that allows them to define what being a real American is a type of person who would allow the wealthy to be wealthy without having any responsibility responsibility to all the systemic problems that come as a result of capitalism. That's how they have meticulously groomed the definition of patriotism. And that's the sole function of Fox News and all these propagandist outlets.